Welcome to the Combat Sports in Africa podcast. Today, we're shining a spotlight on Tribe Combat Sports, an exciting new MMA promotion that's making an impact on both the African and global combat sports scenes. Joining us is Zalo Werenskiold, the CEO and founder of Tribe Combat Sports. We'll delve into the origin story of this Afro-Scandinavian promotion based in West Africa and explore what inspired William to focus on MMA in this vibrant region. Despite having only one event under their belt, Tribe has already stood out with their high production quality and authentic storytelling, truly capturing the essence of African combat sports. We'll discuss their mission and long-term vision, the unique challenges they faced in establishing a professional MMA promotion in Africa, and how they're nurturing local talent in a continent that's a hotbed for athletic prowess. Plus, we'll talk about how Tribe plans to ride the wave of global interest sparked by African stars like Israel Adesanya and Francis Ngannou, and African culture, art, and entertainment. But before we jump into this conversation, make sure to subscribe and follow the Combat Sports in Africa podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for all the latest updates. Now, let's dive right into our conversation with Zalo Werenskiold of Tribe Combat Sports.
So, William, can you share with us the origin story of Tribe Combat Sports? What inspired the creation of this promotion, and why did you decide to focus on MMA in Africa?
Yes, my co-founder and I both are from African descent. He's from Algeria and the Gambia, and I am from Ivory Coast, in addition to us both being from Norway. We have always talked about our strong desire to contribute in moving the continent of Africa forward. In our view, the only way this can happen without it can't happen without the diaspora's strong involvement, as we bring knowledge and know-how from here, and also because we see the opportunities there so clearly standing on the outside. He is a serial entrepreneur. He has started clothing businesses before and was strongly involved in the music industry. And his passion lies in the branding and marketing department. Me, I used to train MMA and competed as a semi-pro for a few years. So we joined forces and decided to, let's use our strengths and start building the future of African MMA.
For anyone who's not familiar with the brand, I recommend you follow them on social media and you check out their content on YouTube. So obviously I'm speaking about Tribe Combat Sports. As I was telling you before I hit record, I first saw this brand. I saw the promo video that was released, and just the way that video was edited, the storytelling, the build-up, just the magic behind it all. And by magic, I mean just the creative, touch and flair that it had. I was like, wow, this is something different, Sure, it's something different for Africa, right? For MMA, but it's different in terms of just the look and feel of mixed martial arts, if I can say, as a brand globally, as someone who follows and looks at different mixed martial arts products. And folks, there are plenty all over the world. Every continent essentially has various mixed martial arts promotions, amateur, pro. But this one here, you got us right from the get-go. At least you got me right from the get-go in terms of how that was set up, in terms of like the video, the look and feel, the high-level production that was put into it. It really grabbed my attention, and I reached out to you guys earlier on, and I'm glad that we're able to speak. Now, there's a lot to your answer there was very interesting, because you mentioned the fact that obviously you're of African descent, and you and your partner, you're both of African descent, and you mentioned that the movement, I'm paraphrasing here, correct me if I'm wrong, that the sports development in this case, mixed martial arts, in order for it to move forward, it does need the diaspora, the people in the diaspora's involvement, which is a very interesting one because as someone who's interviewed various people involved in martial arts on the continent, for the most part, there's a lot of folks from the diaspora that are involved in it one way or another, right? In terms of wanting to give back and support. So it's interesting that that happens to be the case here as well. But if I can ask, tell us a bit more about your background as a competitor and what
Mm.
got you into combat sports.
I used to train Thai boxing. I think this must have been wow, this must have been maybe 10 years ago. And in the room next to my Thai boxing class, there was this MMA coach, Kenneth Berg, a high professional, top level athlete from Norway that used to be a coach there. And every time that I went to my Thai boxing class, I had to walk through this room, and then I saw these guys rolling and wrestling. And one day I said to myself, I have to try this and just check it out. And then I was just addicted since that day, I think. And I was lucky enough to be able to train at the Frontline Academy with the likes of the biggest star there, name there is Jack Hermansson. He's competing in the UFC middleweight division. And I was there for 5 years. I had 3 semi-pro combats in Denmark and England. And then this idea just came to me, and then I had to choose what I invested my time in. So from that day, I've just been doing this, but with the same passion and the same love as it is still in the same sport. So yeah, that's my story, I guess.
William, when that idea came to you, who did you pitch it to first? And what was the initial reaction from your friends, your community, and so on? How did they react to this idea of bringing professional mixed martial arts to Africa, West Africa in particular? What was the initial reaction?
You mean the first person I pitched to ever, or
No, no. I guess in general, as I'm hearing you,
Mm,
I'm hearing the story, right? Obviously, you had this idea. You're like, what
mm,
if I could bring professional mixed martial arts to West Africa or Africa
mm.
as a whole, I should say. What was the initial reaction from your community when you shared this vision?
I was sitting with my best friend Ozzy, that's also my co-founder, in a cafe. We were just talking about what should we start together. And initially, we wanted to build gyms all across Africa, like a gym brand all across Africa. And then we almost said together, why don't we just start a league?
Hmm.
And he is like me, a dreamer. So it came quite natural, just spin on the idea, and then we got to work.
Yeah, you got to work and you made it happen, which is a big, big leap because a lot of people dream, but when it comes to putting down the effort and the vision and the action and all that, and not everyone can do it, as you know, in business or in anything, quite frankly. My next question for you is, how would you describe the mission and more
Mm.
importantly, the long-term vision of the promotion, and what impact are you hoping to have on the African MMA scene?
So our vision is to redefine the global combat sports landscape. And we're going to do this by elevate the African combat sports to the forefront of the industry. Um, how we're going to do this is by making Africa a go-to destination for all combat sports. We're going to do this through making exhilarating events and unmatched access to exclusive content through our streaming platform, tribecombats.com, where you can go and watch all our content for free at the moment. Making it accessible for all Africans, especially. So it's a customized payment solution. And we aim to be Africa's biggest promotion. That's the goal. We see America has, or the West has UFC, Asia has ONE FC. Uh, but in Africa, you have no one. You have Brave in the UAE, but Africa has no brand that really sticks out, and we want to take that spot.
Very, very interesting. And it's also interesting that the payment system as you described, you'll have a customized one for African content consumers and another one, I suppose, for outside of Africa. Is that correct?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay. Now, in terms of like you mentioned, the impact is you're hoping to represent Africa as a whole, right? As you just mentioned there, you mentioned the UFC, ONE
Mm.
FC, and so on. Do you think Africa needs its own major MMA promotion?
I, I think so. I think especially for the fans outside of the continent, it's much easier to follow if you just have one major player you can tune into. Um, that's also the streaming platform idea is to like uh, create all the assemble all the best talent in one place
Mhm.
and make it easy to follow from the outside as well.
The reason why I asked that question, William, is because obviously we're on the Combat Sports in Africa podcast. I'm actually located in Canada, and contextually, it seems to me like there's a lot of interest. Maybe I have a bias. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's a lot of interest on African MMA fighters. We could say
Yes.
it stems from Francis Ngannou's, global impact as a
Mm,
representative of African MMA.
mm.
But it's not just him, right? There's a ton of talent all across that country, and obviously, you Tribe Combat Sports, from what you're saying, is invested in really elevating African MMA. Um, because there's talent there. Isn't that would that be correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's clearly talent in Africa.
An incredible amount of talent. It's crazy actually. The athletic level of the population is insane.
It sure is. So it's exciting to see this brand here, as you're saying and describing, wanting to represent the continent as a whole. And I'm also curious to know the brand you speak when you speak of Tribe Combat Sports.
Mm.
You mentioned that you want it to be the premier combat sports brand. Uh, are you also including non-mixed martial art? Are you excluding other combat sports as well down the road, or is it exclusively mixed martial arts for now?
That's a good question, actually. Our vision down the line is that's also why we call it combat sports because we want to include multiple combat sports in the future. So we have already on our list we have K1 as the next sport that also engages North Africa in a large capacity, and also there's a lot of K1 and Thai boxing in West Africa as well. So I think it's going to be MMA and K1 to start with, and then we're going to evolve as we move on to eventually include even more combat sports in the future.
Very interesting that you have a vision beyond just MMA, because I know that ONE FC's model is similar in the sense that they're
Yes.
not just focused, as you know, on just mixed martial arts. They're looking at boxing, kickboxing, and grappling as well. So it differentiates them from, say, the other competitor, UFC. But it's cool that you guys, I suppose, are taking that same approach and not just zoning in on mixed martial arts. Obviously, we all love mixed martial arts, but there's so many incredible other professional combat sports out there. Now, I mentioned earlier on that I saw the promo video that was initially released, and I'm
Mm.
sure I'm not the only one who's seen it. And if you're listening to this interview, I'm going to ask you again to please go check the YouTube channel for Tribe Combat Sports, and also on Instagram. I believe that's where I first saw the initial promo video. And I speak about the production quality and the storytelling that certainly stood out for me. How important is it for Tribe Combat Sports to tell these authentic African stories through these events?
Incredibly important because nobody's telling them. So we really wanna show where these guys come from. We call our company Afro-Scandinavian Combat Sports League. For tribe, it means we keep the African DNA within the Scandinavian frames. So to further describe it, the product is rooted in African culture, but the production is of Scandinavian quality.
Mm.
That's like our main goal, to keep spreading the African culture and stories as wide and vast as possible.
William, for someone who's listening to this who may not be familiar with Scandinavia, and you're part of the world in terms of culture, business culture, and even storytelling culture, if you don't mind, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but kind of tell us about Norway and Scandinavian culture from your lens and your experience. What's it like growing up there, and how has that kind of influenced your approach to art and business?
I think the quality here is unmatched in everything, infrastructure wise. Everything is of very high quality, and the finish is really strong throughout all the products being sold and offered here. Uh, it's a very individualistic culture. So
Oh, it's not a collective. I thought it was a collective cause. Aren't Scandinavians? Please correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize for interrupting.
yeah,
I thought Scandinavians had a more collective culture. No?
no,
Okay.
this is the opposite actually. It's very
Mm.
cold here. So the social life here is very different from the African social life. Um, but it's very like how can I describe it?
I'm sorry. I know it's somewhat of a random question, but I think for listeners they'll
Yeah.
appreciate that sort of cultural understanding of the culture, I suppose.
It's very do you say homogenic in
Yeah.
English?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not a lot of room for new ideas and new ways to think or new ways to do things. Um, but it's a very quiet and peaceful place. And I think it's maybe one of the best places to have a base for the things we want to do. Um, it's not a lot of innovation here. I think all the industry in Norway, especially, is spread across four industries: real estate, fish, oil, and finance. So it's quite narrow, the window here of what people um, go into. So we're quite different in that sense. But here as well, the African culture is being spread fast. And as you mentioned earlier about the Francis Ngannou's and Adesanya and Kamaru Usman, I think they contributed, of course, but I think also it's important to not forget all the artists from the music industry as well
Mm.
that came alongside them. That's also um, opening the eyes of people from Western countries to African culture and music. So I think both of them are equally important to lay the foundation for us.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a demand for content on the music side, and not just limited to music when it comes to West African music, and African music and culture as a whole. And I think
Mhm.
providing content online to a global audience is certainly a win-win solution. William, it's funny that when you mentioned innovation or not very innovative, just as you were about to say that, I was thinking about how um, the perception of Scandinavia from non-Scandinavians
Mm,
is that it's a very, I'll tell you the stereotypical perspective is that it's a very progressive part of the world, a lot of very advanced social policies. And
that's
even on the business side, there's sure it
mm,
might be limited to four sort of sectors, as you mentioned, but there's a lot of innovation and research and development in that part of the world that's leading edge. And I know we're going off on a different topic here. I'll bring us back to MMA, but it's interesting to actually hear it from someone who lives there, as you describe it, and you shared that position and perspective. Because I can tell you, within the sports context, I think the Norwegian on the amateur side, the Norwegian model for
mm,
sports is really uh, on the winter and summer Olympic sports.
mm,
That country, albeit very small in population
yeah,
compared to other parts of the world, tends to produce a lot of medalists in
that's true.
winter and summer sports, and they have very um, I don't want to use the word innovative, but I'm going to innovative sports program that like
Mm,
gets kids at a young age involved in sports,
yeah,
um, at a community level, and then they make it accessible for all,
that's true.
which isn't the case in many parts of the world. If it's in elsewhere in the West or or even on the continent of Africa on the sports development side. So Norway actually is a very interesting country when you look at their sports
I
development.
I agree. Like the social program in Norway is really good and strong, and that's also part of the Norwegian culture as well. That um, even if you're from a poor family, you still have access to a lot of things. I think also that's a reason why um, you can foster up a lot of good talent. Sweden, just to make the difference, is really high and leading edge of industry. They have
Mm,
Spotify and Volvo, and they have came up with a lot of brands. So Norway is quite different in that sense because we have the oil, so everything is surrounded around the oil here.
exactly. You guys are like Dubai,
Yeah.
the Dubai of the North.
Yes, you can say it like that.
Now, I want to dive into some business themes because obviously you guys have launched this brand, and from the looks of it, it's incredible what's been put out thus far. But I'm sure it wasn't easy, as I mentioned before. What are some of the unique challenges you faced in trying to establish a professional mixed martial arts promotion in Africa, and how have you managed to overcome these obstacles?
We learned, we've been on this journey for almost 6 years, so it took time. We learned early that the way to do business in Africa is quite different than to do business here. So that was the first thing we had to like adapt to. Um, and especially regarding timelines and execution and also hunger, to be fair. Because we come from the outside and see all the opportunities there, and we come in with a lot of passion. Um, but we also learn that they don't re they don't necessarily see it the same way there. Um, we also had a lot of work to do on the side of convincing investors in the West that Africa is an untapped market who is right now experiencing an industrial revolution. Like China in 2000, you couldn't find any car in China. There were only bikes in Beijing, but now it's the biggest market for cars in the world. So in our eyes, Africa will be experiencing the same explosion. in industry. So convincing people here was quite hard, and we realized that maybe this idea is too big for Norway and is more appreciated in the international community, as Norway is quite homogenic. So that was maybe the two biggest challenges we faced.
It's interesting because that cultural issue, business culture that is obviously
Mm.
localized in West Africa, or even within one country in Africa, is very unique. But you're coming in with a Norwegian business mind, and obviously, uh, there's challenges there. What would you say in terms of patience? How do you navigate the need for patience when dealing with uh, local business culture that's probably not, and I'm trying to be respectful here, obviously, but not as agile and innovative as your approach? Like how do you deal with that, with scenarios where things are slow, there's probably too much bureaucracy and not enough transparency, for example? How do you deal with that?
That's where you really get tested of how much you want it, to be
Mm,
fair.
mm,
But I think I can speak for whole the whole continent if I say that in Africa, if you don't have the right contacts, you will move nowhere. So to build the right network, we have some people on the team that already has a vast network that like speeded up the processes, but it takes time to build trust and to meet the right people. When you have all that set, then you can move. But until then, it's quite stalling. But for us, it has never been a question of should we quit. We have always known that what we have here is unique, and we have only talked about how we can make it happen all these 5 or almost 6 years. So that's maybe quite unique in that sense that maybe many people would have given up. But for us, it's we're going to take this to the moon and back.
Let me give you a case scenario here, because this is a unique product in the sense that you're providing the content on its own unique streaming platform, right?
Yeah.
Let's speculate here, and I'm
Mm.
sure this has probably crossed your mind. Let's say WME, the owners of the UFC and
Yeah.
WWE, reach out to both of you and say, "Hey, we like what you're doing. We
Mm.
like this product. Would you put it on our platform, UFC Fight Pass?"
Mm.
What would you do? And if, say, one
Mm.
FC reached out to you as well and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
let's let's set up a partnership so we can assist you in expanding your global reach, because now they're
Mm.
available on Amazon here in the West, Canada, USA."
Mm.
I don't know if that's the case in the European market. I don't think so. I'll have to look into it. But have has the thought of being acquired for this product, has that crossed your mind? Because you said you want to take it to the moon.
Mm.
And even, every business, it happens, right, where you get proposals or pitch
Yeah.
for acquisition, um, just based on the quality of the product from the
Mm.
get-go. It sets a tone, right? It sets a
Yeah.
tone. And I'm just speaking openly here and brainstorming, and I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot with this case scenario, but I'm sure anyone who's listening would probably ask you this question. Has that thought ever crossed your mind? Say, once you build a brand to a certain
Yeah.
level, would you be open to being acquired by anyone, a competitor with bigger reach and so on?
It has, but it would have to be under the right terms. Um, and by that I mean the brand has to be uh, continued, if I can say it like that.
Sure, sure.
That's maybe the most important thing because I put in so many years of my life into this. And but initially, I would say no. But of course, you would have to look at the deal when the deal is there, if the deal comes. But this is my passion. This is my love. So if I'm selling this, I don't know what else I can do with my life. I'm living my dream right now, and I'm really looking forward to the future. I think you guys have only seen the beginning.
Very interesting. What sort of feedback have you gotten from African fans on site, where you've put the events and the fighters? What sort of feedback are they giving you? Because you guys you're giving them space to represent. Like
Yeah.
if people haven't seen the promo videos, I'll tell you from just a fan engagement and
Mm.
storytelling and marketing perspective, like how you position these athletes and
Yeah.
elevate them has a lot of currency,
Mm.
from a scouting perspective. Like if someone is scouting for talent, if you're a matchmaker located in Las Vegas and you stumble, you know what I'm saying, you stumble on this content, you're like, wait a minute, who the hell is this guy, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
see their personality. You accentuate
Mm.
um their best qualities, and I say that also from the lens of like sports
Mm.
entertainment, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like these guys are fighters, but they're also personalities, and that has value for for fans, but also for people in the industry who look for the next. I don't want to say the next big star, but the next athlete to bring into their promotion. So what sort of feedback have you gotten from local African fighters and also fans?
Overwhelmingly positive and so much feedback. After the first event we had in January, the fans came up to me and said, "This is the best event we've ever been to in our
Wow.
lives. So thank you so much for bringing us this opportunity to see this live." So that was the first wave of feedback from the fans. And then when we came back home to Norway, my phone started blowing up with all these athletes wanting to compete at the next event. So I think I've had over 100 athletes, professional athletes, um, telling me how much they love the product and they want to compete. So that's
Wow.
insane. And also athletes from Scandinavia showing interest. So that's actually uh, the way we hoped it to be, to bridge Scandinavia and the West with Africa through sports. So to have interest from both sides is incredible. And also the fans back home have keep telling me when I meet them on the street that this is insane, the things you are doing. So keep it up. So I'm blown away, to be fair.
That's awesome. Will you be booking Scandinavian athletes on future cards and possibly other athletes from all over the world who want to partake?
Yes. So our business model is an international combat sports league, but in Africa. So we're going to bring people from all around the world to Africa to compete.
If someone's listening to this and they want to reach out and be considered as a competitor, how do they reach out to you?
You can reach out to the email contact@tribecombats.com. You can send us an email there, and then we'll take care of you.
I know that UAE Warriors also puts on. Obviously, they put on events where they book African talent from
Mm.
North Africa and Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and
Yeah.
they turn it into a North versus South sort of angle. North Africa or Arabia versus Africa, as they recently
Mm.
just had an event yesterday.
Mm.
What's your opinion, if you don't mind me asking, on their approach and the work they're doing in terms of profiling and and essentially putting on fights with African competitors.
I think I think it's great that so many brands now have discovered Africa and wants to help build the scene. I think
Mm.
Africa is such a huge continent that it's room for a numerous amount of players. So that's a blessing, to be fair, to just build the sport throughout the continent. Um, I think North versus South is a cool product, but that's why we called our league Tribe, because Africa has a problem with tribalism throughout history. So under our roof, everybody is one. Uh, the same goes for the international community. We all were tribes one time in history. So we don't want to do it like country versus country or East versus West. We want to like include everybody as equals under one roof. So that's maybe something that differentiates us from them.
As a fan of these sports, I think it's awesome when we have variety of promotions out there for in
Hmm.
the best interest of the athlete because it gives them a spot. You know what I'm saying? To go and fight. And I think it's great that obviously you guys are there, but that this other promotion is there, and I'm sure there are other ones. I know at a more localized level on the amateur side, which
The
leads me
PFL
to,
now as well are coming in.
pardon me.
PFL are joining in.
Right, that's right. Yes, yes, yes. What are your thoughts on that of PFL claiming their stake in African professional MMA development?
It's great. They have a huge platform, and also competition is good. But the only thing I see that still differentiates us from everybody is that whenever someone wants to start a MMA league, they all do the UFC blueprint
That's right. Yeah.
as their base. But they don't have the same capital or the same playbook, so it's always a C D product. So with us, we sell culture in addition to fighting, of course. Uh, so I just see us touching the fans a bit different than all
Hmm.
these other players.
William, have you done any interviews with like business podcasts?
I've done two interviews before.
Okay. But pure business like entrepreneurship sort of podcasts?
No, I haven't.
No, because it's really interesting here. I think I'm enjoying this interview because we're not just hearing about training methodologies and coaching and this and that, but there's so much more on the business side there
Hmm.
as you speak about your brand being unique in its look and feel, and how it
Hmm.
differentiates and how it stands out vis-a-vis other brands. Because it's true, with PFL appearing there, it's an offshoot of its American cousin,
Yeah.
which and quite frankly, I think with Ngannou spearheading that, being the quote unquote chairman, it's good for them. But if they didn't have Ngannou, I because we're in such an era of personality driven
Hmm.
brands that I kind of
Hmm.
wonder what impact it would have. Obviously, as I mentioned before, it's great. The more players on the continent the better,
Yep.
but it'll be interesting to see. Are there any parallel like partnerships between uh, Tribe Combat Sports and these other brands? Do you guys have you do you talk to each other? Is there a possibility on collaboration or any such thing?
We haven't actually. Uh, I can't recall. Yeah, yeah, some small um local actors a few years back, but not like talks of partnership or any sort of collaboration. You said something there. Yeah, One more thing on the business side of it is like the PFL or the UFC. They're such big organizations, so they can't travel to Ivory Coast or the Gambia because uh, the salary there of the people is not high enough to buy the tickets they need to sell.
Mm.
But we can move everywhere. We have a small organization and we can move everywhere and customize the payments for everybody there. Um, so we can capture them all in a sense, so they all can experience it. Uh, so that's also an important aspect of us versus them, that they have to go to Nigeria or South Africa, um, the biggest markets immediately. But we don't have to. We can take all the other countries around.
That's fascinating, man. You know, it's really interesting too because Dana White for years has been talking about we're going to Africa, we're going to Africa, we're going to
Mhm.
Africa, right? Like in terms of putting on an event in Africa.
Yeah.
And clearly Africa has a thriving it's an emerging MMA scene, you know, but it's there, it's happening. We've got brands like yours, Tribe Combat Sports, putting on, you know, MMA events, professional MMA events with their own look and feel. And I think fans in North America, I don't know how much engagement and reach you've had here, but I'm sure because there's a huge diaspora community here, as you know, from of
Mm.
Africans from across the continent
Yeah.
who are interested in MMA, and I'm sure. Actually, in one of your videos, recent videos, I believe I saw a Senegalese coach who
Yes.
used to live in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
Yes,
Uh,
Matarme.
yeah, and I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada,
Mm.
and I've interviewed that guy a long time ago when he was here
Amazing.
fighting and representing, and he's one hell of an athlete. I
Yeah.
believe he's moved back to Senegal to propel Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Thai boxing, and MMA. And it's great to see that. But when I saw him in the clip, I said to
Mm.
myself, wow, what a small world, you know?
Really small.
Tiny, tiny. But Africa is increasingly recognized as a hotbed for athletic talent, as we mentioned earlier, particularly in combat sport. How does Tribe Combat Sports aim to develop and nurture local fighters? And what's your approach to scouting talent?
So one of the things we'll do is also open an amateur league in the future. So we'll have the amateur league, and then they can transcend to the professional league within the same company. So we can build them and also give them a career when the time is right. And also build gyms in the countries that don't have the same access as some countries do. That's very important to be able to build this sport further in Africa is the infrastructure. On the scouting side of it, we have an incredible matchmaker named Christopher Darre. He was a former professional MMA athlete who is working on networking with managers and gyms every week, in addition to myself, uh, which has resulted in us now having a roster of more than 60 athletes, professional. So it's just a matter of networking, really, over time, and also uh, writing and calling and um, and really finding these diamonds in the rough, because you can Google all these gyms and all these communities. So you really have to dig deep.
When we go on your website and we create an account, and for the record, I'm going to be creating an account to access content. I'm curious to know what's the user experience like for fans when they log on and create this account. What can they expect? What should they expect, I should say?
For now, it's the first version. Um, have you ever been to the site World Star Hip Hop?
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a bit like this, I think, just a lot of videos, uh, as you enter, and then we're gonna of course increase the amount of content. We're gonna also have documentaries in the future,
Oh wow.
showcasing, for example, kickboxing in Ivory Coast, showcasing Gambian beach wrestling or Moroccan K1, underground K1, for example, and a
Wow.
lot of different stuff that nobody has access to or seen before. In addition,
Exclusive original.
exclusive originals, yes,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
a bit like using the Vice format, if you
Of
remember Vice.
course. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
So you can expect a lot of different genres and entertainment coming in the future.
I mean this when I say this. This is very exciting. Um, as a content consumer, as someone who enjoys this content, I
Mm.
think it's very exciting, and I think it's dealing with subject matter in sports in a part of the world that probably we're limited to seeing these stories. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Although there are short clips on social media platforms that are uploaded by people on site, I would imagine, right? That you can
Mm.
find that sort of stuff. But if you're putting it in the nonfiction format, I think in the storytelling with your brand's approach, I think it'll certainly be something special. I was going to ask you. I don't know how old you are. I'm not asking. I'm not asking for your age or anything like that. But do you remember back? Do you remember Pride FC back in the day?
Yes.
Do you remember Hansen, the fighter?
Yes, Joachim Hansen,
Yes.
the legend here.
He's still a legend within like MMA. I know we don't see a lot of highlight clips of him, but there was
Mm.
a time. I mean, he's highly regarded, and this is speaking as someone who's just consumed content and has read
Mm.
up on him. He's still highly regarded for his work in Pride FC, particularly in the division that he fought and the way
Yeah.
he fought. I think he's got a lot of fans in Japan. What is he doing these days? Sorry, I know we're going. I'm jumping here. I'm jumping scripts, but since you're originally from Norway, I'm just curious to know. A, what is he doing, and how is he regarded in his home country?
Last I heard of him, he did a boxing match, I think in Sweden or something, that he lost, unfortunately. Um, you don't hear so much talk about him anymore, but of course, in the fighting community, he's a legend, unmatched legend. The first international like huge MMA star we ever had here. So he's in the history books for sure.
Yeah, he was and Pride FC is such a legendary brand. I'm like an old man yelling at the clouds because I'm when I think of like MMA, to me, I
Mm.
think of like the golden era, like there's
Yeah.
the golden era of hip hop, right? In the 90s
Yes.
particularly. But I'm like, man, when I go back and I look at
Mm.
those Pride FC days, the
Was
production, the
insane.
storytelling, and the fact that it was in Japan, kind of
Yeah.
adds so much momentum. And his portrayal there was fascinating. It's almost worthy of like a short documentary. You know what I'm saying? Like a
Mm.
YouTube-esque documentary on why he had such an impact there. And if I can ask, recently on the global level, we were introduced as fans who don't follow Olympic weightlifting, I should say. We were
Yeah.
introduced to a Norwegian
Yes.
weightlifter, um, from who won gold, who just
Yeah.
recently began in the last, I believe, 6 or 7 years, began training in the sport. Um, I forgot her name, but
Solfrid.
go ahead.
Her name is Solfrid.
Yes, yes, yes. She won gold. You obviously know who I'm talking about, right?
She's half from Ivory Coast and half from 50% from Finland, I think.
Wow, wow. Well, but
Mm.
she is in Norway, is she not? Oh no, she's in Finland. Pardon me.
No, no, she's in Norway.
Okay, okay, okay. Right. Okay. Right. What's the Norwegian media saying about her and her incredible story?
Too little.
You're kidding.
Too little, bro. It's
You are kidding me, man. Bro, we are hearing like I know it's on the social media side, but
yeah.
like I, I was following. I'm a huge fan of some Olympic sports,
Mm,
predominantly judo. I follow it actively, and you wouldn't imagine how many clips I saw of her
mm,
and her incredible personal story and her perseverance and all that. For anyone who's not familiar, look her up and you're telling me that Norwegian media is sorry, I'm going off script here, folks. I know we're talking about combat sports, but since William is from Norway, I had to ask. Like, you're telling me Norwegian media is not covering this athlete as much as they should?
not a lot. In Norway, it's just ski and football.
Wow,
A
wow, wow.
few of the sports, but no, it's weightlifting here is really really small. Uh, but a gold medal should elevate it, but it doesn't look like it has really.
That's
That's
incredible. That
that's
is,
sad.
it is sad. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that sport is not very popular. Maybe it was back in the day, but
Mm,
I don't mean to generalize. It's certainly not as popular as say track and field or 100-meter dash
mm,
and maybe swimming. But I think her story, her personal story, is really, if I can say, a touching one.
yeah,
It's basically she got involved in sports much later on in her life. I
yeah.
think by the time she was 18, she was doing CrossFit, and then one of the coaches recognized her natural talents and invested in her and said, "Hey, why don't you try lifting, like Olympic style lifting?"
Mm,
And she progressed. Essentially, I believe she got the silver in the worlds, and next thing you know, she qualifies for the Olympics, literally in the span of like a couple of years, man.
yeah,
And then she wins gold,
that's crazy.
and it's incredible. And there's a lot of fascinating stories, sports stories that we never fully hear about. And I
Mm,
know you're clearly involved in documentary and storytelling through this
mm,
brand. It sounds like you are, and I think maybe y'all should do a story on her. I think
yeah.
and you mentioned she's also she's her she's from Ivory Coast, or one of her parents is from
Mm,
Ivory Coast, so that would be interesting. But here, I'll go off that tangent and I'll come back to our interview. Sorry for that, folks. There's a global interest in African fighters and culture
mm,
and all that, with stars like Israel Adesanya, Francis Ngannou, putting
mm.
the continent on the map. How does Tribe Combat Sports plan to capitalize on this momentum? And what makes your promotion stand out from them? I know you've already answered this question in
Mm.
different ways, but tell us what makes your promotion stand out.
We capitalize by joining this, if I can call it, a cultural revolution. It's a trend now, and try to show your African descent. You see how the three kings wore their African clothing during the pressers and stuff. It's a strong pride to show, and that's amazing. So we're gonna capitalize by spreading the African culture throughout our products. Look and feel, music, and some other stuff. I think you guys will enjoy. Uh, and also by having this platform with free access that makes this accessible for everyone. I think that's the two main reasons to why we're gonna be huge.
What does success look like for Tribe Combat Sports in the next 5 years? Are there any
Mm.
specific goals, such as expanding to new regions or signing African fighters to global promotion, that you're aiming for?
Culture is the new gold. I see all the leagues in Africa. They always stick to their country of origin, like the Kamaru Usman's league, Akusho. They still in Nigeria and they have no plans of leaving and traveling around. EFC in South Africa. They've never have had an event outside of South Africa. So we want to be the first major league to travel around the continent and host events. We already have access to 5, 6 countries to host events. In the next 5 years, I hope we're gonna achieve to at least have had events in 4 countries. That's gonna be Gambia, and the natural next step is Senegal. We also have Ivory Coast and Sierra Leone as 4 names on our list. Our goal is to be able to pay the athletes enough money to not want to leave the continent. I think it's a problem that all the talent in Africa leaves when they reach a high enough level. They all leave. That's also Africa's problem. That's that they are being tapped of talent. So we want to keep them on the continent and create stars of them in their own communities and on the African continent.
And that is incredible. I did not expect to hear that angle of retaining talent in Africa as opposed to having them go abroad and immigrate, as so many want to for a variety of reasons. So that's an interesting uh, angle to also consider for the brand as to how you're investing locally and giving these athletes that opportunity for a livelihood, but also for to retain the talent. The talent on site. That's quite interesting. You've traveled to Africa. You're half African
Hmm.
from Ivory Coast.
Hmm.
What does it mean for you to be not just involved in this really cool, creative, passionate project that you've been involved, as you mentioned, that you're
Hmm.
all in on? What does it mean for you to also go back to the continent and visit so many, you've mentioned 4 or 5 countries here, to
Hmm.
visit so many countries and engage with the local culture? Well, what does that mean to you on a personal level?
It makes me whole, I think, because half of me is have roots there. So to make me feel whole, I need to touch base with both. Uh, and I also speak French, so it's a natural. I move quite naturally in West Africa.
Hmm.
Uh, so in the
I,
African countries,
uh,
I
sorry,
French
please
countries
continue. Sorry, I'm interrupting the guy. Sorry.
because West Africa is half English and half French speaking. So that makes me able to travel quite swiftly around all the countries.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
What can you share? A nice memory from your time there in Africa that kind of validated on a personal level this project. Like, can you paint a picture for us of a moment, an interaction that made you feel like, yes, this is what I'm meant to be doing?
Yes, I have a story there. We initially, every entrepreneur has a very false sense of how fast the product is going to be out there to the public. So we were thinking initially in 2019 that yeah, in 6 months we're going to have the first event. And then November came and we saw, wow, somebody is launching this in Senegal, in our region. And that was the first artist event. Artist, the big French league.
Yeah.
So we said to ourselves, okay, we have to go there and see how the competition is doing and what their plans are. So we traveled to Senegal. We sat down at the event, and it was a good event. But we looked at each other and was like, wow, they really don't get it with the culture thing. There were no vibe in the audience. They had brought white European French ring girls from France to be there in the cage. And the product was, if I can say, lacking flavor.
Mm.
But the next day, MMA was born in Senegal. It was everywhere, on the radio, on the TV, everywhere. So then I was thinking, wow, we were right. The sport here is in demand, but our product is still unique. And we just saw 1,000 ways of why we're gonna win instead of them. So that really like cemented for me uh, the path I'm on.
Right on. One last question for you. Thank you very much, by the way, for this interview. This has really been fascinating. I've enjoyed hearing this, and it's been unique because we're also discussing, you know, a business concept and idea. So there's themes of entrepreneurship. There's themes of sports development on the professional side, and it's good to hear that there's plans to also invest on the amateur sports development, because that's also important. My last question for you, William, is for people outside of Africa who may not be familiar with Tribe Combat Sports, why
Yeah.
should they pay attention to what you're building here? What can the international MMA community learn from the African scene?
I think with us, the fans will get to see innovative live events. They will get free access to African combat sports of the highest level. And they will witness the combat sports stars from Africa of tomorrow. I think what the international community will learn is that they will learn the amount of talent and high-level talent there is on the continent. And then I think they will also see in the future how much of a role Africa will play in the sport of MMA. Africans and sports is something unique. You see at the football World Cups, it's always the African fans that being highlighted as the most engaging fans. So to connect Africa with sports is you will get something the MMA community has never seen before. So I'm looking forward to showcasing that as well in the future.
Well, William, congratulations to you and your partner for launching this brand. It's going to be interesting to follow this story and see future events. As I mentioned, I'll be signing up and creating an account to access some of this content. I do follow you on social media, so plug your social media accounts, and if there's any last words you'd like to say before we sign off, that would be great.
We'll just say tune into Tribe Combats on Instagram. And tribecombats.com for the streaming platform. And I just want to say thank you so much for reaching out and giving me the opportunity to explain my dream and my vision.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and sharing it. Have a wonderful day.
Same to you.
Thank you for joining us on the Combat Sports in Africa podcast. We hope you enjoyed this interview conducted by Garmami with William Zalo Werenskiold of Tribe Combat Sports. Until next time, stay passionate about combat sports in Africa.